Okay, probably 2 or 3 more minutes before we get started formally. Thanks for your patience. I think we will go ahead and get started, and uh, perhaps some others will join us along the way, but we'll begin with a uh, intimately gathered group of attendees. So we'll be able to potentially have some good Q&A time for those who have joined us. So we will go ahead and begin now. Um, Thanks for attending this virtual open house for the LA Brave project, which stands for Los Angeles Bikeways, Riverways, and Active Valley Equity. This is a meeting today to talk about a new project that's in planning to bring uh, new bike paths and bike lanes to the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. Before we get going, I do want to cover our language access. So it will be speaking in English today, and I'll introduce myself shortly, as will my colleague from LA DOT, Department of Transportation. For those who wish to have Spanish interpretation, we do have that capability active. And all users, all attendees, must select a language. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see the interpretation button, which is looks like a little globe. You can please select that and choose either English or Spanish, excuse me, depending on your preference. If you choose Spanish, you will hear our Spanish interpreter. So please go ahead and make that selection if that is what you prefer. All right. So for today, again, welcome. The purpose of our meeting and our agenda is to introduce the team members working on this project, to introduce a input tool using mapping so we can gather feedback on the proposed project, to, of course, go through the project itself, an overview of its features and its objectives. We'll spend some time answering any questions from our attendees. And then we'll talk about next steps for the project. So for our team introductions, the people who will be speaking for the city are myself, and my name is Michael Affelt. I work for the Bureau of Engineering in the city of Los Angeles, where I am the Los Angeles River Revitalization Coordinator. So I work on a variety of projects along the Los Angeles River to improve its condition. And part of that means active transportation projects like bikeways and greenways. Later on, we'll be joined by Jack Moreau from our LA Department of Transportation, who will get into some of the on-street bicycle and pedestrian features that our project proposes. We're also, the rest of the project team includes members of Councilmember Paul Krikorian's office. Doug Mensman is with us, as well as members of the office of Councilmember Nithya Raman. Mehmet Berker is with us. And we also have a wonderful grant writing team helping us with this project, represented here by Kat Callahan. Those folks are probably not going to get on the microphone unless there's a question that they need to answer. But Kat will be available in the monitoring the Q&A if there are issues with the mapping tool that we're going to get to. Here's those offices that are represented. Council offices, Bureau of Engineering, Department of Transportation. Grant writing is from CR Associates. And we also have some support from Gruen Associates. And also another partner in this project is LA Metro, who is a funding partner. All right. So I mentioned that we do have an online input tool for feedback that I would like to introduce here. You can reach this tool by following the link on the screen, which is bit.ly/ and this is the capitals matter here, in capitals, LA Brave, and then lowercase map. So that's bit.ly/LA Brave map. Or you can take a picture of the QR code, and that'll bring you to a online web form where you can enter feedback about the project. It's pretty cool. You can, we answer some questions about project features and tie them to a specific location. So you can click on the map and give us feedback directly. That's a really good way for us to get feedback from folks. And we'll have another way to get feedback by email a little bit later. And so now we'll get into the project that we're discussing today. So here's where we're located. The project we're proposing is in the East San Fernando Valley, along the Los Angeles River, and includes a few communities in this area, including Sherman Oaks and parts of Valley Village, connections to North Hollywood, Van Nuys. And the objectives of this project are drawn from the city's goal to complete the Los Angeles River Bikeway. The river runs for 51 miles, 32 of which in the city of LA. And we've outlined a plan through this report, whose cover is on the screen right now, to completely connect the San Fernando Valley portion of the Los Angeles River Bike Path, to have a completely connected system through the valley, and then through the entire city, and eventually through 51 miles through all the region of LA, for folks to bike or walk or roll away from traffic along the river. We're making good progress in completing that system through the valley. This map is a little complicated, so I'll just go through it a little bit. In green, where the LA Brave arrow is pointing, is the subject of the project we're planning now. And in blue are some other projects that we've recently funded to complete portions of the Riverway system. Over to the west of Sepulveda Basin, we have a project that is about to go into construction. Just east of the project we're discussing today will be segment 8 that is about to go into design. And then around the Sepulveda Basin and just west of our project area, of the LA Brave project area, Brave 7, are areas that will be planned for future projects. You can see at the bottom of the screen, we have our plans, our alignment for the valley portion of the Riverway planned over segments. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's all these segments. And we're kind of planning and executing them one piece at a time. Segment 7 is the subject of this project we're discussing today. And this is the condition that we're working to create. This is a picture of an existing piece of the LA Riverway bike path in the West Valley. And eventually this will be representative of what the connected system will look like. It's part of, again, as I mentioned, the completion of a larger system of the LA Riverway throughout the entire city, not just the San Fernando Valley. And besides bike paths and trails, it also includes new bridges where we need them, and crossings, and other amenities along the pathway, gathering areas, and pocket parks. Those are part of the entire system that we're creating along the river. I referenced earlier, just to back up, this planning document here. This was completed a few years ago, and with the help of community input and engineering analysis and transportation analysis, we've already done a significant amount of planning for segment 7, and that is between Woodman Avenue and Coldwater Canyon. And so that is the sort of center of the project that we're proposing, completing this just over a mile of bike path along the river between between Woodman and Coldwater Canyon. Again, that's segment 7. Community meetings were held a few years ago to help inform that alignment and the other alignments that we've been working to complete. And now, as we're planning to complete that segment 7 of the Riverway, we're also hoping to build out connectors on the streets with bike lanes and pedestrian safety and other features to help residents in this area connect to that regional river path, as well as to use the bike lanes and other facilities to move more safely and easily throughout their neighborhoods. So we're accompanying that segment 7 of the river path, which is in yellow on this map, down at the bottom of the image, accompanying that with new bike lanes and other infrastructure along the roads. And my colleague Jack is going to get into some of this detail later. But the overview is Class 2 bikeways along Fulton Avenue, Class 3 bike route along Addison Street. Well, that's actually a neighborhood greenway. And we'll also have some other segments of bikeway, including planning for a Class 4 to connect to a key nearby school, as well as along Valley Heart Drive to make a bit of an interstitial connector along the river. Here's where we are in planning this project. This is sort of a rough schedule. You can kind of see the phases of work for a project like this, beginning with putting together money, which is calling funding assembly. And then, assuming we get that funding, then moving into planning and then design, awarding the contract, and then finally getting into construction. Takes several years to go through that process. So we're looking at, hopefully, if we get funding that we're applying for, beginning construction by 2030. I know it feels far away, but this is the process we have to go through to pursue the project. So we're right at the beginning. So again, an overview of what this project is. Completion of segment 7 of the LA Riverway path. Improving and creating new street crossings. Providing bike facilities to connect to the river. and providing pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements throughout the project area. So before I turn it over to Jack in just a few minutes, I want to go over again a little more detail on the river portion of the project scope. Again, we're looking at class 1 bike path, which means a fully separated bicycle facility, multi-use facility really for bicycles and walking and rolling. And as I mentioned earlier, here's a little bit of a zoom in. A segment of that will be between Woodman Avenue and Moore Park Street. This will be sort of the western edge at Woodman of our project area along the river. So we'll be on the south bank of the river, traveling west to east here, reaching Moore Park. At Moore Park, I'll back up for a second, there will be a bit of a on-street connector to reach Fulton Avenue, because the very, very, very short section kind of diagonal between Moore Park and Fulton Avenue doesn't really make sense to try to get back down on the river path for that few hundred feet. So at Fulton Avenue then would be back on the river path, again, still on the south bank, and traveling over to Coldwater Canyon Avenue. So that is the extent of the river path for this project. Now, east of Coldwater Canyon, past this project area, is another existing portion of the river path. So when we build this out, it'll extend the continuation of that path. Here's what an existing condition looks like out there. Actually, we have a pretty wide area through a lot of the stretch to work with. And again, a example of what that could look like when we're finished building out the path. That's what we're planning for. Okay, I'm going to pause again just very briefly to reiterate that feedback method in case anyone didn't catch it the first time. The web link bit.ly/LA Brave Map will bring us to that online feedback tool. So just a few more slides before I give it over to Jack to talk about the on-street elements. And leading into that, as we were planning to build out the river path and wanted to make bicycle and pedestrian connections into the surrounding area, well, one of the first things we did was look at what are the community destinations that we want to connect to. And so here's a few that we wanted to prioritize. Dixie Canyon Elementary and St. Francis de Sales Church and School, right near the river. The Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Recreation Center, big recreation area that we can connect to. The Orange Line or G Line, busway and bike path, so a regional transit amenity. LA Valley College along Fulton Avenue at Burbank, well, between Oxnard and Burbank, major educational facility. Of course, the wonderful Tahungawash Greenway with its beautiful built-out greenway facilities. A pocket park along that area called Fulton Avenue Park. Another school, Louis Armstrong Middle School. Also, the existing bike lanes on Woodman Avenue. So those are some of the key resources that we hoped to connect to, and we've formed the project scope around connecting to those resources in part. Okay, so this is the part of the presentation where I now turn it over to my colleague Jack for a while to talk about the on-street portions of the project. And Jack, I will advance the slides at your request.
Okay, thanks. And not that it's super important, but I can't turn on my video unless you enable it. I don't need it on, but
I think it's all right. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jack Moreau. I'm a supervising transportation planner with the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. I've been working with Bureau of Engineering and the council offices to work to develop some of the on-street connections to this LA River Path extension. And we focused on a few streets in particular because, and I guess zoom out, like one of the reasons it's so important to think about the on-street connections is because we want as many people as possible to be able to reach this new resource that we have available and the investment we want to make for the city. And so the more biking and walking connections we can make on street to the river path, the more people will be able to enjoy it. Our primary street where we are focusing bike lanes is on Fulton Avenue. So as you can see, that's stretching all the way north to Sherman Way, and the southern limit is Ventura Boulevard. There are a few segments where the roadway is a bit more constrained, narrower, where we're proposing what we call sharrows, or a class 3 bike lane. Those would be kind of paired with more like traffic calming attempts at speed reduction, but where the bicycle would be in the shared lane with the vehicle. That's on Fulton, primarily like a striped bike lane with sections making it a class 3 bike lane. That's Fulton Avenue. Addison Street is more smaller street, residential, and so we're focusing on neighborhood greenway improvements. So that'll be mini traffic circles, some curb extensions. Basically, Addison's already a fairly nice, slow street to bike on. And so we're just adding in some additional improvements to make it a little bit more calm so that families would feel even safer biking there with their children or with their grandparents. That's kind of our overall goal, is creating facilities that are safe for people between the ages of 8 and 80. So that's where Addison kind of gives us the east-west connection. In terms of the river path itself, while it is going within the river right-of-way, it does reach bridges throughout its course. And so when the river path reaches a bridge, it will have a signalized crossing over that bridge, like crossing the street. So that'll be in some cases pedestrian, hybrid beacon, or basically just a signal that will only serve pedestrians. In other cases, it will be like a full traffic signal. So that's at all the different bridges throughout this segment. There is an area where between, I think, Moore Park and Fulton, where there's not sufficient right-of-way to fit the class 1 bike lanes in the river path. And that's that section of Valley Heart between Fulton and Moore Park Street. Valley Park's also a very calm neighborhood street. And so the river path would enter Valley Heart for that portion. And then finally, we have a small spur down Dixie Canyon Avenue between Moore Park and Ventura, where we're proposing a protected bike lanes, which would directly connect to 2 different schools located on that street into this network that we're planning. And in the next slides that Michael can advance to now, I'll talk more specifically about some of our different cross sections, like how are we going to accommodate this, as well as some of the definitions for what these different bicycle facilities look like. For this meeting, we're talking with Council District number 2 in particular, which is the project area north of Burbank. This is a photo of Fulton between Victory and Kittredge, which is in this area. And in this existing kind of roadway configuration, we see we have a parking lane, we have a travel lane, a center turn lane, a travel lane the other direction, and then another parking lane. And if you go to the next slide, Michael, we'll see that in kind of an illustration of what we have. So this is kind of what we're looking at in this area. So how do we fit bike lanes? In this case, if you go to the next slide, Michael, we are replacing the turn lane, the center turn lane, where we would be removing it and instead have one travel lane in each direction, and then bike lanes in each direction. So in some cases, a lot of Fulton has that center turn lane. We'll be removing that center turn lane in order to fit the bike lanes.
Jack, I'm just going to show that again real quick, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So here's the condition. Here's the existing condition. And then there's the new condition.
Thank you. And let's go to another example. So this looks similar. This is Fulton, slightly different area between Van Owen and Hart Street. And if you go to the section on this one, we can actually see some of the measurements. And so in this area, the driving lanes are actually quite wide. So the southbound lane being 16 feet, the northbound lane 21 feet. And so we're actually able to fit in bike lanes just by narrowing those driving lanes without removing that center turn lane. So if you go to the next, we can kind of see how that works. There's a bike lane alongside the driving lane. We maintain the existing center turn lane. We have a northbound driving lane. And there's so much space in that driving lane, we're actually able to stripe a buffer to give that bike lane a little extra space to kind of operate their bicycle in. So that's kind of the different types of trade-offs we're likely to see while we reconfigure the road to fit bike lanes into it. You can go ahead. When I say bike lane, this is what I mean. A class 2 bike lane, which is a standard striped bike lane, the simplest of bike lanes out there. So this is kind of what, I guess, in that segment that I was just showing you, what it would look like, because we have kind of, in some areas of Fulton, especially in this segment of it, like there's not always like a sidewalk or a curb. And then there's sometimes parking, sometimes there isn't. That right-of-way line is shifting around. And so we have like the edge of the asphalt, then we have the bike lane, a driving lane, center turn lane, and then repeated on the other side. So this is kind of likely what you'd see certain areas of Fulton to look like. In others, it wouldn't necessarily have that center turn lane. Go ahead. In a few sections, I think for this portion in CD4, it's just between Sylvan Street and Irwin Street, where there is not enough space to fit a class 2 bike lane, or I should say there is enough space, but it would require significant removal of parking. And so in those areas, we're proposing instead a class 3 bike route where it would be shared road space with signing and striping indicating that it's shared. And then where possible, we'll be trying to add speed humps and other kind of traffic calming measures to try and slow cars down so you don't have cars racing down the street, and you can kind of make it a more comfortable experience for when you're sharing the road. Go ahead. Traffic calming. One of the ways that we implement traffic calming is through intersection tightening or curb extensions. There's a handful of locations on Fulton itself, Sherman Way, Van Owen Street, and Victory Boulevard, where we're proposing curb extensions, as well as on Addison Street. I won't list all of those locations. This is an excellent way that we can slow down vehicle speeds, particularly as they're making turns, but without any real trade-offs. Generally, these curb extensions or intersection tightening occurs within the existing red curb zone. So it doesn't really functionally change how the roadway works, but it visually narrows the road and tightens up turns. So you just kind of slow people down, and they're a little bit more careful when they're reaching the crosswalks. Traffic circles are, such as the one pictured here, are proposed at these 2 locations only on Addison Street, at Varna Ave and Sunny Slope. I referred to this like pedestrian hybrid beacon. And this is, you might be familiar with this type of traffic signal. You'll see these at some locations along the LA River, particularly where the river path is reaching a bridge and it's crossing the street. I actually think this list that's shown on the screen may have changed slightly, and some of them may be fully signalized intersections. I can't remember exactly which was which. But in general, like a hybrid beacon is a type of traffic signal that a pedestrian can approach, click a button. When they click the button, it gives the cars a red light and they stop so that the pedestrian or bicycle rider can safely cross. And that wraps up the on-street kind of bike lane connections, and I'll pass it back to Mike.
Thanks, Jack. Really appreciate you taking us through that. Really excited to be able to pair all those neighborhood improvements with the river path to create this comprehensive project. So we're looking at a project that the rough estimate is about a $40 million project in all told. Of that, the construction cost is probably in the range of 20 to 25 million, and then other management and design costs make up the balance. So we are seeking money from the Active Transportation Program. It's called ATP, from the state of California. It's cycle 7, so it's the 7th time the program has been open. And we'll make a request of probably approximately $30 million. And we have another $10 million available to include as match to make up that total project cost. As I went through earlier, just briefly, planning and design, if we are funded, would take place beginning next year and last for about 3 years. And then construction would begin around 2030. Again, if we're able to win funding. So we're hopeful for that. Okay, the last time to see the feedback link. Again, this online mapping tool is the best way to give us specific feedback about the project scope. I will also mention here that this outreach meeting and another we had before it are just the beginning of the project development. If the project is funded, during the development and design phase, there would be a very robust specific engagement process to go through every detail of the project with community members. Right now, we're at the stage of basically assembling scope to the level of being able to seek funding. So we hope we get that funding and then can engage in a full design and development process with community members. We'll also take comments by email if you wish. You can send it to info.lariver@lacity.org with the subject line LA Brave. I would love to take Q&A at this point, but I don't think we're going to have any Q&A. I will leave that option open for a few minutes, but not expecting to get any Q&A. I will say thank you from me on behalf of the Bureau of Engineering, on behalf of Jack and Transportation, the council offices, everyone involved in putting this project together. We really appreciate the attendance today to help inform it. Just briefly, the next steps will be to submit our grant application in a couple of weeks. Towards the end of the year in the fall, we will learn if we were funded, and if so, we'd begin project development the following summer. With that brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'm going to stop the recording.